back with Fish Head videos. We're back doing some videos, and so without further ado, this is the fly that we're going to tie today. This is called a Unabomber. Now, if you remember the history on the Unabomber, he was a guy that sent bombs around the nation killing people. And he was caught in Lincoln, Montana by the FBI. We're not real proud of that, but I thought it was a unique name. And I've actually had people buy it just because they like the name, which seems a little silly. But a little bit about this fly. I'm going to tell you what, that this fly flat catches fish. That I have guides that I run into that fish this fly, and they tell me that their clients are just, they should all send me thank you notes. But I'm going to tell you, it's a son of a bitch to tie. I hate tying this fly. And I'm hoping that my prices outweigh the demand. But I guess we'll see what happens with that. So it's worth learning how to tie. It's a good one. So I would encourage you to learn it, fish it, and form your own opinion. If you're not selling them, I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's easy. Then you can just do it. You don't have to be tied up with the concern about, I've got 40 more dozen of these to do. But without that, let's take a look at the materials for this fly. Okay, so we've got 6/0 black thread. You could use other colors there. You wouldn't have to be tied to the black, but that's the basic pattern. Again, this is just some Antron that's going to be put around the shank of the hook to prevent it from turning. The hook in this case is a 3X long, size 10. The tail is moose hair. I like this contrast, and as you'll see here in a few minutes, it's very nice. The underwing part of that is crystal flash, and you'll see there's not much left on there, but there's enough. The body is made up of peacock herald, and then the overwing is elk hair. We're actually going to do a video on some elk hair. I want to show you some things on selecting elk hair and some just things to look for. The hackle is brown saddle. I do have longer ones where I could use one, but the hackle is so hard to find these days that I want to show you how to tie two on at the same time. It's a little harder, but it's done. It's doable. And then the wing, the parachute, you could use a white here, but I like orange. It shows up better. Nitrogen bubbles tend to, you kind of lose a fly sometimes in nitrogen bubbles, which are white. So I tie it in orange. So with that, let's get this thing going. And again, I can't emphasize, it's not an easy tie. But it's worthwhile to learn. Definitely a worthwhile fly. Okay. So we're going to put a thread base. But additionally, we're going to add that Antron top so it does not spin. And again, this is a fly that has a larger body. Generally, it's imitating stoneflies. So they are not a delicate, skinny fly like a mayfly. Okay, so we're going to start that up near the eye of the hook. Hold on to it real tight. Bring it back right to the start of the bend and call it good. Okay? Just like that. Okay, this is moose mane. Not moose mane, moose hair. I'm sorry. And you want a decent sized clump of it. And maybe you can see that. So there's a lot of strands there. One of the things, one secret about when you go to put a longer hair in, cut that bottom part off and it will stack a lot better like that. So notice how I gather that all together in my fingers like that. Hopefully get that in there. Okay. And you can see that white on the end, that's baby powder, and that really helps that stacking. Okay, and this has a heavier tail, so I want an extension about that big. So I kind of look at that. I bring my thread back to about the 3/4 mark of the hook shank. Okay, so that looks about right. So always when I'm going to grab a tail, I use then my fingers to make the length of the tail. Okay? All right. So again, I'm going to incorporate that into the body. Bring that moose forward. Nice heavy tail on this fly. You got to remember that when you're fishing dry flies, that the heaviest part of the hook is always the bend of the hook. So you need something there to hold that up in a dry fly. That's really critical. Okay. This is hard to pick up. It will get it. And again, I buy 10-inch peacock, so it's a little bit thinner in the herald area, so it's 4 for this particular fly. So now I'm not going to set that across the top of it like that. If you notice in the body of the hook, it's the narrowest right here toward the back of the tail. So that's where I'm going to start that, right there, to take up just that little amount, okay? So I'm going to bring that forward, okay? And I want to wrap this tight, real tight, as tight as you can get it. It's not going to break unless you're just a heave-ho strong man, okay? So we're going to tie that in there, just like that. Okay. And when I tie this crystal flash in, I want to show you something, and I'll show you what not to do first, and then I'll show you how to do it properly. And before I trim this or anything, so if I tie this crystal flash back here in that void without tying it on top of that hair, see how it immediately stands it up? I don't want that. This is a downwing type fly, so don't make that mistake. So what you do, you want to tie that in. Move that over so I have a little more vision. So I'm going to bring my thread right back up on top where we finished. So I'm always going to tie that in on top of the body. And in doing so, it makes it lie nice and flat then on the body and not that accelerated. And say I wanted to bring it down even a little more than that, I can come up the body of the crystal flash a tiny amount so that it sets flatter. So see how I did that? And see how I have it spayed out, so I'm going to get some flash on each side of the elk hair? Okay. And I want you to notice when I cut this elk hair, and we're going to have a video, we're going to do a video on elk hair so I can kind of show you some do's and don'ts and whatnot. Okay. So I'm going to select some hair. It's a pretty good sized clump, and I'll show it to you. But notice when I go in to cut it, I don't use my tips, that I come in from the side and I use the whole scissor. That way I don't dull my scissors in the process. Okay. So we're going to take that elk hair. There's always going to be some short ones. There's always going to be some under fur as well. So we're going to get rid of those. Okay, that looks good. Okay, just like that. Okay, same thing. We're going to pinch it all together so it goes into the stacker nicely, just like that. Okay. Slight tip on it. Good. Okay. So I want that to be approximately to the end of the tail. So it's going to be, I want to look at the bottom here. So I want to cut this hair where the unevenness of this end goes away. So right there, okay? So again, remember, I'm not going to tie into this void at the front of the hook. I'm going to tie this on top of that body. Same way, just like that. The one thing about this fly too is that I guarantee you'll use a lot of thread on this fly. This fly will have a larger head than a lot of flies that you tie. So I use a lot. I use a lot of this 6/0 mono. And then I can build that up again in a minute. Get that down there. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to even that out a little bit. Now, one of the things that I do, I don't want these feathers to be spayed to the sides. So I give it a pinch from each side and one from the top so that it lays out flat over the body. Doesn't spread out like this. I want it, it's imitating wings, and that's how those wings should lie, just like that. Okay? So I'm going to take a little of this. This is my trusty hairbrush from when I used to have hair. So I've never threw it away, and I never dreamed I'd ever use it again, but I use it all the time. So I'm going to spread that out, then I'm going to gather it all together again. I want the end to be nice and flush. And I want a wing, again, it's kind of like cutting lumber when you're a carpenter. If you cut it too short, you're SOL, but if it's too long, you could always cut it. But that's about the length that I want. So I'm just going to lay that. Notice I'm just going to set that right over the top of the hook. I'm going to tie it in right where the hair and the start of the head go. Right there. Now I want that nice and tight. Good. Okay. The one thing again here that I'm going to do, I don't want to use my tips to cut this stuff. Notice how I'm coming back on the scissors. We can get them out there in a minute. Okay, now I'm going to stand this up. So I'm going to hold it with 2 fingers back toward the bend of the hook, and I'm going to wrap in front of that orange poly. I want this fly to stand up, or this polypropylene, excuse me, to stand up straight. And then I'll show you a couple little tricks that you can do here too. So when I go to prep this for the parachute, I'm going to go around a couple times there. So then I'm going to start, I always give it just a little twist, and then I'm going to go right around the base of it. And we're going to get a few wild hairs, don't worry about that. Okay, so as I'm putting them in here, you can see that the post is moving a little bit. So every once in a while, I'll give it a couple around the hook, which gives that post an unbelievable amount more stability. I mean, I can tell a monstrous difference just tying that much, that there's a big, big difference in how that sets. Okay? Good. Okay. Now, with this shortage of hackle that we experienced today, a bigger hackle, and it would be nice just to be able to tie this with one hackle, but that's not the case. So now a parachute is going to be, if you look at that again, that's the dry fly side, the dull side, and that is a wet fly side. But you want this wrapped like this. So this is shiny side up, okay? So we're just going to set one of these right on top of the other one. And this is not easy, and it's a real hassle, and it's just one of the things that today with this change of hackle out there, you don't have any choice, but you got to do this. Okay, so I'm going to pull them feathers back right there and expose those 2 veins. Just like that. Put those together. Okay, so I'm going to set that right in that gap between the post and the hair. Okay, if you run like that, one over the top of it, so I'm catching those veins. And that's probably going to work. Okay, so now, and this is the tough part, and believe me, this is a fly that these veins will break, especially when you're wrapping 2 of them. So you're going to grab them both at the same time, just like that, and you're going to pull them out straight with some pressure. Okay, start wrapping toward the top, and then just whoop. See, and there you go. See how that vein broke out of there? And that's one of the reasons why I've become a heavy swearer and hate this fly. But don't get me wrong, learn to tie it, you'll catch fish. Okay, There we go. So we're working our way down. Let's go one more. That's plenty. So now I'm going to lift up that hackle. Now notice here too, I don't bring these feathers back to this gap right here to cut off. Otherwise it makes for a real ugly head. So I'm going to tie those in back up here on top. And as I say that, they slid down. Let me see if I can kiss that again. I think I'm SOL on that. Now we'll get it clean. So again, I'm going to come in there. I'm going to clean that up. Okay. Now I'm just going to work on getting that done. This is the only fly that when I glue these, I use super glue on this fly and not head cement. And I always have, and it just seems like it works better for this fly. So I've got everything out of the way. I got the hackle out of the way. I got the wing out of the way. Okay. Just like that. A few uneven ones I'm going to get out of there. Sometimes you can just pull them out of there. Okay. So I'm not going to even head cement this fly. This will require super glue. But I just want to show you then this bottom. Wild ones here I'll get rid of. And if you got a few wild ones in there, that ain't no big deal. Okay. But I like the contrast that the fly gives with the moose tail. You know, there's a lot of flies that they just use elk hair there as well. I think that the moose works a lot better there. So there it is. There's the Unabomber. Again, very difficult to tie. Not horrible, just lengthy. Guarantee you're going to catch fish with this, though. But use it, tie it, learn to do it. But you got to have the right hair, and you can tie with a white post here. There's a lot of things you can do. And the last thought I want to leave you with is that we're getting a lot of likes, we're getting a lot of views, but we're not getting the subscribes. Please hit that subscribe button. No cost. It's a win-win for both of us. So with that, tie this fly, get out there and do some fishing and give them hell. And thanks for viewing.